Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Thomas. Tonight we're back here with VC Andrews once again. Yeah, he asked me to react to another one of his videos. Today we got the oldest versus mediest versus newest on the musical Annie. So yeah, Orphan gets adopted by a rich family, so I think if you guys know the word Annie, you know the story. So there's three, so how about we hop in and get to it. Be sure to like, subscribe for more. Hope you enjoy it. Let's go.
Hey guys, it's the VC Andrews Critiquer. Let me ask you guys a question. What's the most famous musical out there? West Side Story, Hamilton, The Sound of Music, The Book of Mormon? Well, okay, I'm just kidding about that last one, but it is still pretty damn good. Check that last musical out. But anyway, as to which one is the most famous musical ever, I would personally have to say, and this was also my favorite musical before I saw West Side Story, Annie. Though The Sound of Music is a close second. Based on the classic radio/comic book character of the same name, well, abbreviated anyway, it's the story of Annie, an orphan living in Manhattan during the Great Depression under the care of Miss Hannigan, a woman who despises children and sees Annie and her fellow orphans only as free labor, but she hates Annie most of all because she seems to be the only one she can't break. Why? Because it turns out Annie's allegedly not an orphan, so she has a note from her parents saying they'd only be leaving her at the orphanage temporarily and would be back for her as soon as they could. Even though it was over 10 years ago, Annie's remained positive that her folks are going to come and save her from that crap hole, and this hope gives her resistance towards Miss Hannigan's attempts to crush her spirit and make her subservient. Though her attempts to escape and find her parents aren't much more successful than Steve McQueen or Paul Newman's. But eventually Annie is rescued, but not by her parents, but rather by the richest man in the world, before him of course, Oliver Warbucks, who wants an orphan to spend a week at his place to boost his political image. The staff immediately react to her the way the internet did when Volume 2 of Stranger Things Season 4 was released, and Warbucks doesn't care for her much at first, but she grows on him to the point where he officially wants to adopt her. Annie of course is super grateful, but says she can't since she still has folks out there that she's trying to find. So he offers to help, getting the FBI to search for them and offering $50,000 to the first couple who can prove they're Annie's parents. But since Miss Hannigan happens to know all about Annie as her guardian for over 10 years, she plots with her criminal brother Rooster and his girlfriend Lily St. Regis to dupe Warbucks and get the biggest cash grab they've ever had. As popular as the original Little Orphan Annie source material was, this musical is at least 20 times as famous as it, to the point where its title is almost as common knowledge as the word water. Some other impressive notes about it is that it launched the careers of big names like Ariana Grande and Sadie Sink when they played the title character, and was a heavy inspiration for Despicable Me, one of the most beloved animated movies ever. Anyhow, being so damn famous, film adaptations were inevitable. The first was released in 1982 by Columbia Pictures, which was fairly faithful to the musical, but did incorporate some new songs as well as reinstating some characters from the original comics that the musical dropped. The second was released by Disney Channel in 1999, which was definitely the most faithful to the musical, about 95% in fact, and then Columbia released a new adaptation, only this time updating it to the new tins, and also making Annie and Warbucks African American. But which one is the best of all? Let's find out. This is oldest versus median versus newest, Annie.
Begin! Oh, that's right, Jamie Foxx. Let's go.
Who's that little chatterbox? The one with pretty auburn locks. Whom do you see? It's little Orphan Annie.
The best one.
Yep, here comes the best in. Let's see.
Yes, who could forget Dear Little Orphan Annie? This character, in my opinion, is the reason this musical is possibly the most famous one ever. The kid is just so damn likable. She's kind, she's smart, she's funny, and she has one of the best pieces of advice one could offer. Be sure to drink your Ovaltine.
Ovaltine?
What's that?
A crummy commercial? Son of a bitch.
No, I'm just joking. Her actual advice, as paraphrased through the song The Sun'll Come Out Tomorrow, is basically, so what if life's a total hellhole now? Tomorrow's gonna be better, and the best part is, it's only a day away. And she's not a saint like Charlie in the Burton Wonka movie, who is a complete one-dimensional saint. She is sad, angry, and even scared at times, but still ends up being able to always find the silver lining in tomorrow, making her really endearing and a great role model. But now let's look at the 3 different portrayals. This choice was a bit difficult because all 3 Annies were pretty well portrayed. They really capture the character's positive outlook of life and hell on earth, but never cross that fine line so we could still relate to her. But I digress. Which one is the best of all? How about we start with the median, played by Alicia Morton? Alicia totally nailed the sweetness of the character. Just about everything this little tyke says just makes you want to crack a huge smile.
Gee, I would. Only sometimes Sandy forgets his name is Sandy. Right, Sandy? I've never met anybody with a real job, except Mr. Bundles. So I'd kind of like to watch you work.
However, I don't really feel she captured the moxie and spunk of the character.
Yeah,
I could tell she was
too much
trying,
of a Disney
but
sweetheart,
I'm not an orphan. My parents are alive and they're coming to get me someday.
it didn't really seem to come as naturally to her as the other 2 actresses I'm going to talk about.
Not really much
How
of a
about her
spunky one.
writing? The only major gripe I have is that she isn't given as many emotional scenes as the other 2 Annies. She's got some, but they
blame
aren't as
Disney on that
powerful,
one
which is
thing.
a slight drawback you get from staying very faithful to the source material and not adding stuff to make it more exciting. Oh yeah, there's a scene where after Annie runs away, she steals. Not cool, kid. Not cool. And every now and then, her acting is a tad wooden. Not too often, though.
TV movie. What do you
Anyway,
expect?
let's move on to Quavengana Wallace in the newest. Wallace definitely
2014?
captured the charming spunk of the character. She was snarky, witty, and knows damn well that Stax initially only took her in for the publicity, and is perfectly willing to collab with him on how to exploit this.
Don't worry, I got a game face. Let's take some photos.
But her problem is the opposite of Alicia's. She didn't really capture that Annie sweetness. Oh, don't get me wrong, she was still sweet, but at your average 10-year-old girl level. The character of Annie, I feel, needs that, "Aw, aren't you just the cutest little thing" level of sweetness. And I just didn't get that vibe from her. And this is just a minor nitpick, but this Annie doesn't know how to read, apparently. Now that sounds like an interesting addition to the story, and in theory it is. So what did they do with it? Pretty much nothing except have Stax give Annie some reading lessons from private tutors, which leads nowhere. Not to mention it also contradicts many previous scenes, like her being able to read her parents' note, being able to spell her name, and her literally being in the frickin' 4th grade. And last, but certainly not.
Yeah, that does seem like a bit of a continuity error. I mean, I get they just wanted to try to, like, bond Stax and Annie in that one, but really? You do realize she read the note, wrote her name, is in the 4th grade, like, really? Oh boy. That didn't work out well. Womp womp. Also, yeah, not really sweet, more just of the snarky type. You think they got the information from that from Zuri, from Jesse? You know, the little money Ross. Zuri Ross? Moving on.
At least, let's look at Eileen Quinn, who I'm sure many of you have guessed by now is the winner. This kid was absolutely perfect as Annie. Where Alicia had the sweetness and Quavengana had the spunk, Eileen had both. And, well, just look for yourself.
It's a really swell idea to have an orphan for a week, Mr. Warbucks. A really terrific idea. Even if it's only for your image. Even if I'm not the orphan, I'm glad you're doing it.
I'm glad to approve.
Anybody else? Scram! Then get lost!
Don't you just see the spunk and sweetness coinciding with each other so perfectly?
Beat
Plus, there are a few additional components where the character shows some major selflessness. In this version, she initially won't accept a week of no abuse and living in the most luxurious house in the world if her new dog Sandy can't come, since she won't be there to keep Miss Hannigan from sending him to the sausage factory. Or when Rooster and Lily are about to take her away while posing as her parents, she says she doesn't want to keep all her fancy new clothes because she thinks they'll just remind her parents that they're dirt poor and asks to give them to her friends at the orphanage. Not to mention she gives a really convincing performance of fear when the villains are stalking her in the climax, which I'll discuss later. Just look at this acting. Again, all 3 Annies did great, but Eileen Quinn did the best in my opinion, perfectly capturing all the traits associated with this little dearie, and also adding some really likable, selfless moments to her as well.
Point goes to the
oldest.
Never tell a lie. I can't trust you. I can't trust anybody. No.
If I had a
Gold's
nickel
gonna
for
win
every
here.
rich asshole who was turned into a better person by a poor but golden-hearted kid, I'd be as rich as Warbucks. But since the story does do it pretty dang well, I'll give the cliche some leeway, especially since this guy inspired proof from Despicable Me. But since time is money, let's get into Best Warbucks.
Here we go. Time for the adoptee.
Yeah, who could forget Oliver Warbucks, or Will Stax as he's called in the newest, the richest man in the whole world who learned through Annie that love and emotional support are among the few things you can't buy with money. But let's get right into it. Let's start with the median's Victor Garber. This one I liked the least, I'm sorry to say. Make no mistake, I love Victor Garber. He's just such a sweet and likable dude, especially when he played Thomas Andrews in Titanic, and he's just as likable here as he is in most of his other roles.
If it's your parents you want, then I'll find them for you.
Did you hear the little lady? Ice cream and roasted corn and all the Christmas decorations left in the city of New York.
The problem I have with him, though, is that he probably has the least amount of character development of the three. The idea is that a poor but nice girl enters this rich but entitled asshole's life and makes him a better person, but Victor Garber never really seems all that indifferent to Annie. I mean, he is a little brusque when we first meet him, for like 3 minutes, and then he becomes a nice guy right then and there. And granted, this is keeping true to how he was portrayed in the original musical, but again, more faithful doesn't always mean better. Love you, Vic, but not enough character development for my liking. Now on to Albert Finney and Jamie Foxx, who have much more natural character development. When we first meet them, they make Trump look humble by comparison, and make it painfully clear that Annie's stay with them is only to boost their image. But we see the youngster slowly soften his heart more and more until, well, as he puts it,
"You've wrapped me around that cute little finger.
You made life a song. You made me a singer." Oh.
Now, as you may have guessed, Will Stax does have more differences than Oliver Warbucks than just the name. Like here, he's not specifically stated to be the richest man in the world, but he still is given.
Wait, I think your Anna comes to me?
My God, this house is freaking sweet.
He's also a bit more developed than Warbucks. Namely, he's trying to run for mayor of Manhattan, but isn't too hot in the polls. The fact that he uses his name brand technology to invade people's privacy probably doesn't help too much with that. But then when he saves Annie from getting hit by a car, someone posts a photo of this on Instagram, and this makes him a public hero. So his campaign manager, Guy, who I'll discuss a little later, suggests he invite Annie to stay with them leading up to the election. So by being more fleshed out, does that make him the winner? Not necessarily. See, my problem is, he's not a charming asshole. He's not too unlikable, but Jamie Foxx doesn't really have that charismatic charm we need to get especially invested in him. Kind of like why we couldn't get invested in his Electro in the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Although the YouTube remixes of him accidentally barfing on a guy cracked me the hell up.
See, this is why China's winning.
Not really.
Finney's assholism is played much more comedically, so he's much more easy to get invested in despite how cold he is.
This doesn't look like a boy. Orphan's a boy.
You just said an orphan, so I got a girl.
I want a boy. And thank you, all new Iodent, the toothpaste with Miracle K64. Good night for the Red Network. Drop pain. Did I just do a commercial?
Yeah, Finney's a total riot here, and unlike in Murder on the Orient Express, the over-the-topness works here because it helps him stay likable when he's a cold tight ass. And when he is nice, it's really endearing, even if his singing is kinda hit or miss. Now there is one thing about Stax that almost made me consider giving him the point. So, near the end of the movie, after rescuing Annie from the frauds pretending to be her parents, not Rooster and Lily in this version, more info on that in the next round, Annie's pissed at Stax since the fakes told her that he was in on the plot and this was all part of a scheme to get him re-elected. It was actually all his campaign manager Guy, again more info on that in a bit. So Stax proves to Annie that this isn't true, and he really does care about her more by withdrawing from the election. That was a really awesome moment, and honestly one of the best scenes in all three versions. But after careful consideration, I decided it wasn't quite enough to outshine Finney on the whole. But I think the kiss of death here was the fact that he isn't bald. I'm sorry, but a non-bald Warbucks is, well, unfathomable. So yeah, Albert Finney just seemed like the best Warbucks for having great character growth, but also being very entertaining and likable throughout. Point goes to the oldest
again.
I understand.
I think that this city deserves someone better than I am.
Man, the first two leads are the oldest once again. Oof. Talk about rough. At this point, this might be a clean sweep from Andy, or at least the oldest. Anyway, I guess that's where it's going.
Like Warbucks,
What's
the
next?
villains in the story are a little cliched, namely the terrifying orphanage director from hell and the sleazy, conniving con artist. But who cares? The villains here are just so damn fun, with their burning hatred of little girls and their determination to reach Easy Street at any cost. So let's take a look at Best Villains.
Here they come.
Unlike the first two rounds, this one was pretty easy. Yeah, take 3 guesses who the winners are here. Yeah, it's definitely not the newest. Yeah, like most people, I kind of raised an eyebrow when I heard Cameron Diaz was gonna play Miss Hannigan. And I was mostly right. I mean, she's got some funny moments, don't get me wrong.
Not open auditions.
These are callbacks.
And why are they singing?
People love musicals. Bursting into song for no apparent reason, it's magical. There's a window, there's a bed.
But one big disadvantage she has is that by updating the story to present day, she isn't able to legally get away with underfeeding and physically abusing the girls like she could in the 30s. So really the worst we see her do is overwork the girls and verbally abuse them. And even then, I just don't have much respect for her. While Carol Burnett and Kathy Bates were cold-blooded and intimidating while funny at the same time, Cameron Diaz just felt like a whiny, washed-up former pop star lashing out because of her career going worse than Britney Spears. And I guess that's fitting because that actually is what she is here. That is kind of an interesting angle where it implies she's not really a bad person deep down, and she even gets a decent song where she's remembering back to when she was not a total trash bag.
Where's my good girl gone? You know I had a good heart once.
Kind of sets something up for a bit later, but it's not quite enough to win the point, sad to say. Another kiss of death for the newest was dropping Rooster and Lily. Instead, we have Stack's campaign manager, Guy, and I actually don't mind the way they reimagined his motives for the pose as Annie's parents scam. In this version, instead of a hefty cash reward for the first couple who can prove they're Annie's parents, Guy is set to get paid a hefty cash sum if Stax wins the election. So when Guy learns that Annie's trying to find her parents, he realizes, Eureka! If Stax reunites little orphan Annie with her long-lost parents, the polls will skyrocket in his favor for sure, and it's off to Easy Street for me. But he knows Stax won't go along with it since he's grown to genuinely care for the kid, and he has to dupe him too. So like Rooster, he goes to see Miss Hannigan to get details about Annie that'll help him pull this off in exchange for a share of the money. And I will also say, the couple they get to play her parents do a pretty good job at coming off as the sweet and angelic parents Annie imagined they'd be when we first meet them, as well as the complete trashbaggy kidnappers they actually are when she's alone with them. So yeah, it's a neat spin on the story, but Guy is just not that interesting of a villain. He's not a sleazy, slimy, over-the-top scumbag like Rooster, he's just kind of a run-of-the-mill jerk. Hell, he wasn't even going to kill Annie after kidnapping her like in the first 2 movies, just dump her back into the foster care system. Not as diabolical. He is a damn good singer, though. Okay, so, sorry newest, but no dice. What about the median? It's definitely a huge step up. American Horror Story regular Kathy Bates is really diabolical but entertaining as Miss Hannigan, as is Alan Cumming as Rooster.
Aren't you gonna beat the tar out of me?
Have I ever hit any of you?
Threatened. That's worse.
I know.
I make her disappear. Then we head straight for Easy Street! Easy Street!
And Kristen Chenoweth, well, we'll talk about her in a bit. But as fun as they are, they don't come anywhere close to the villains in the oldest. I mean, it's Carol Burnett, Tim Curry, and Bernadette Peters together. What better collaboration could you possibly ask for? But let me get more specific. Carol Burnett was perfect as Miss Hannigan. She was ungodly, sadistic, and cruel, but also the most hilarious drunk I've ever seen in movie history.
The high-pitched definitely helps here.
Ever been to Buenos Aires?
Where?
I hunger for the Argentine.
Argentine.
In the median film, they kind of toned down her alcoholism, being a Disney movie and all. And of course, Tim Curry as Rooster. He's just as sleazy and callous but hilariously over the top as you'd expect.
He's a street. He's a street. And he is the key.
And as for Lily, well, Chenoweth just didn't seem all that malicious. She's just kind of your average dumb blonde. Peters was a bimbo also, but she was still a terrible person. When we first meet her, she tried to rob Miss Hannigan, and she has a pretty cold-blooded way in which she talks.
You know, I think maybe I'd better hold it for safekeeping.
I did, but...
Plus, Chenoweth gets the short end of the stick even more so. Yeah, in this version, Rooster and Miss Hannigan agree that Lily's too stupid for the job, and that it would be better if Miss Hannigan went in her place.
Sorry, sister.
Okay, 1, a brother and sister are pretending to be a couple. Ew. 2, Lily gets the short end of the stick with the story like stated before. And 3, the scheme was foolproof in the original because Annie had never seen Rooster or Lily before, so how was she going to know they were frauds? But Annie's known Miss Hannigan her entire life, and this disguise honestly isn't that great. Seriously, is Annie really that gullible? But I think what I like best about the villains of The Oldest is that we do actually see them try to hurt Annie. So basically, after they kidnap Annie, she escapes with a check and rips it up, causing Rooster to go insane with rage and try to murder Annie. And we get quite an intense scene where Rooster's chasing Annie up a raised train bridge, and this honestly may be Curry at his most intimidating, not to mention the great acting from Eileen I mentioned earlier. Although this does bring me to a drawback. In both The Oldest and Newest, Miss Hannigan ends up reforming and tries to save Annie, but in The Oldest, it comes completely out of nowhere and just feels so forced. With Diaz, it felt much more natural, as she was starting to think about her past through that song I showed you earlier, and eventually decides to confess to Stax about her involvement with the scam. No, sorry Diaz, that's still not enough to get you the point here. So yeah, all the villains do have stuff to offer I guess, but the winner is hands down The Oldest. Burnett, Curry, and Peters really stole the show, being hilariously over the top but also diabolical villains. Oh yeah, and there's one more thing I want to mention. So you may have guessed this by now, but Annie's parents are revealed to have died years ago, hence why they still haven't come back for Annie after over 11 freaking years. And Miss Hannigan reveals to Rooster and Lily that she knew this all along and just wanted the satisfaction of seeing Annie wait in vain for her parents to come and rescue her from that hellhole, which of course would never come. That is just so ungodly cruel. Although it did give the villains the advantage that the police gave Miss Hannigan all of Annie's old stuff when they died, including the locket, so when Rooster and Lily come to claim Annie with it, it fits perfectly, unlike the Newest or Median. Makes them more believable. Okay, that's enough for this round. Moving on.
Point goes to the Oldest again.
I'm headed straight for the nut house with all the nuts and the squirrels.
Oh. Shut up. Yeah, shut up, both of you. That's 3.
Of course, the Orphan Annie is supportive to anyone she comes across so long as they deserve it.
This way, it's going to be a win for the Oldest.
While with some inspiration.
They already won.
But what about those who are supportive to our 2 leads? They may not be nearly as iconic as them, or even the villains for that matter, but, well, I mean, you don't often see Grace Farrell or Bert Healy spoofed or referenced in media, do ya? Anyway, let's take a look at Best Supporting Cast.
Yes, here we go.
Okay, let's talk about the other much less iconic characters. I guess we should start with Grace Farrell, Warbucks' secretary and eventual wife, and Annie's adoptive mother. And yeah, this one was pretty hard because she is extremely well portrayed in all 3 versions. She's supportive to Annie and also not afraid to put Miss Hannigan in her place, or Warbucks himself if he goes out of line. But I think I like the Oldest one best, played by Anne Reinking. She just seemed to have the strongest connection with Annie of the 3, and she has a little bit of a character development arc, where she goes from being a refined, uptight lady with her hair in a bun to a laid-back, spunky gal with her hair down. Although I did kind of snicker at this comment she makes after interviewing over 862 couples claiming to be Annie's parents.
I never realized how many dishonest people there are in New York.
You're living in a world of make-believe, with flowers and bells and leprechauns and magic frogs with funny little hats.
What about Annie's friends, the other orphans, or foster kids in the Newest? They've got a lot of charm in all 3 versions.
What does hard knock life mean?
It means our life sucks.
Oh, then yeah.
Especially when they sing You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile. Plus, all three versions give them a pardon warning Warbucks about the villain's plot. That's dedication to their friend. Anyway, I do kind of have to go with the oldest again.
There you go.
Why? Well, the idea is that these are all malnourished, abused, and neglected kids, and the median and newest, I just didn't really get that vibe. These girls definitely look like they've been starved and abused every day of their lives, so I just felt the sorriest for them. That and I just felt their performances were the strongest of the three, like Pepper as the bitter asshole with a soft spot deep down.
You want a knuckle sandwich? We gotta warn Annie! Scrub!
Tessie as the wimpy crybaby.
They wasn't her real parents, mister. They was bad people.
Leaping legends!
July as the shy, quiet girl, and so on. And as great as all three versions of You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile are, theirs definitely takes the cake. But we'll get more into that in the next round.
Right,
Plus, I really hate how the newest ones help Miss Hannigan with her auditions for Annie's fake parents. That's a bit treacherous if you ask me. Okay, so yeah, I know how one-sided this comparison has been.
Again.
And in case you're wondering, yeah, this is going to be the first clean sweep with an old versus new. I'll give some more input into this decision at the end, but for now I just want to say, if you do prefer the median or the newest, it's not because of biasing or sentimental value, I just call it how I see it. No joke. And to that end, the oldest does seem to give the other side characters the better end of the deal here. Like, this is the only version where we actually see Bert Healy, the radio announcer who announces the reward for Annie's parents and starts the classic song, You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile. And of course, the scene where he tricks Warbucks into doing a toothpaste commercial is absolutely hilarious. In the newest, he's cut all together, and in the median we only hear his voice on the radio. President Roosevelt is also cut from the newest for, well, obvious reasons. I guess Obama was too busy. Anyway, Roosevelt only appears briefly at the end of the median, mostly just to tell Annie the bad news that the FBI found out her parents died years ago. But in the oldest, there's an additional scene where Warbucks and Annie visit him while Grace is interviewing all the couples claiming they're Annie's parents, and reveals that he wants to start a charity organization for suffering and poor children like Annie, and thinks Annie's song, The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow, is the perfect anthem for it. That's a nice way to showcase what a sweet guy Franklin Roosevelt was. Oh yeah, and his wife Eleanor appears as well. That helps. The newest does give Mr. Bundles the biggest role of the three, where he's just a one-scene character in the oldest and median who helps Annie escape in his laundry basket, and the newest, or Lou as he's called here, is seen trying to help Annie locate her parents throughout the movie, and even gives him a subplot where he has a crush on Miss Hannigan, but she naturally doesn't exchange the feelings, at least until the end. The police officer that arrests Annie probably has the most screen time and dialogue in the median. And fun fact, I actually played this character myself in my middle school production of Annie Jr., and had a little trouble staying in character when the actual dog they got to play Sandy ran into the audience. Speaking of Sandy, I think I like the oldest one best because he appears the most of all three versions. In the median and newest, he meets Sandy briefly when she's out in Manhattan, but quickly gets separated from her and doesn't get reunited until around the middle. The oldest is with her the entire time, and they fit in a lot of funny scenes for him. The median and newest Sandy are just kind of, well, the inconsequential dog. I do like how they make him female in the newest though, kudos for diversity. But I think the main reason I like the supporting cast in the oldest best is because of one character exclusive to it, Warbucks' valet / bodyguard Punjab. This character is so freaking awesome. I think the best way to describe him is a mix of the Dalai Lama and Liam Neeson. He's a kind soul with many wise quotes for little Annie.
And who counts his chickens before they hatch into a scrambled egg?
What?
A child without courage is like a night without stars.
Plus, he's apparently got frickin' telekinesis powers. That's frickin' awesome. But he's also such a badass and effective bodyguard that a plot of Russian terrorists is thwarted almost immediately from him and treated like a fly buzzing in her room by Warbucks. Not to mention he teaches Annie Kung Fu and rescues her from Rooster in the climax. The newest also has a character exclusive to it, namely this deadbeat but kind deep down social worker who tries to help Annie find her parents that's got some laughs.
There's a 6-week waiting period and you need form NYS84-. Lord. Hi.
Bam.
Oh yeah, and there's also Stock's rival for mayor, but I can't really say much about him, except that he's endorsed by Michael J. Fox of all people.
Endorsed by the New York Times, the New York Post, and me, Michael J. Fox.
Michael J. Fox. It's over.
Go figure. And there aren't really any original characters in the median that I can recall. So yeah.
Oldest again?
It seems we have another point for the oldest. Again, sorry fans of the other two versions.
But yeah,
point goes to the oldest.
I think every liar, thief, and crackpot showed up on our doorstep today.
You're being mean.
Yeah, well, sorry.
Once again, it's a clean sweep and... Wait.
Actually, first time, yeah.
Never happened once on my show. Again, I'm going to give my thoughts about that after the review, so just stick around, okay? Anyway, there's really no point in comparing the stories since most of the differences there I've already talked about with the characters. So instead, let's look at the most important components of any musical, the best music.
Songs.
This is music for the or
it's already won.
To the point of finishing the review.
There you go.
Roll film.
It just glance.
Yes, who could forget the classic songs of Annie? Hard Knock Life, I Think I'm Gonna Like It Here, You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile, and of course, and all three movies have good renditions of them. Even the updated and modernized versions of the songs in the newest do manage to maintain the heart of the original pieces for the most part, especially with Tomorrow and I Don't Need Anything But You. But before I talk about the winner, oldest, let's first talk about how the median and newest did each have one song that I think was better than in the oldest. With the median, it's NYC, a song about how awesome New York City is.
What other town has the Empire State and a mayor 5'2"? No other town in the whole 48 can half compare to you.
In the newest, the song is only reduced to the background music of the campaign video for Stack's Rival where Michael J. Fox endorses him, so not really much of a contest there. And in the oldest, the song is replaced with a similar song called Let's Go to the Movies, a song about, well, how awesome going to the movies is.
Betty Davis is probably lying and Greta Garbo is probably crying while Robert Taylor is locked in her dying embrace.
And yeah, it is pretty good, but I personally feel NYC has better rhythm and lyrics.
Yeah,
that's just my personal opinion, though. And with the newest, I like their version of I Don't Need Anything But You the best. Both the oldest and newest were so smart to save it for the very end after Annie gets rescued because it fits so much better there. But why do I like the newest one best? I don't know, maybe partly because it came right after that very emotional scene where Annie thought Stax had deliberately arranged her to be kidnapped and he proved her wrong by dropping out of the election. But I honestly just felt this version, as hip-hoppy as it was just the most heartfelt.
Together at last,
Together forever. But that was then. I was looking for something, looking for my losing.
Okay, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about why I think all the other songs in the oldest are the best. It's not necessarily because of the rhythm, it's more so because of the context. Like mentioned before, in this version, Annie sings The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow as a proposed anthem for Roosevelt's campaign in aiding the poor and suffering, where in the median and newest, she just sings it while roaming the streets of Manhattan. How awesome is it to get to be a songwriter for the President of the United States? And at only 11. Plus, the scene is really funny where Roosevelt absolutely loves the song, but Warbucks wants no part in it until some convincing. Then the settings for most of the songs are just, well, bigger. Like Hard Knock Life in the oldest is set in a wide variety of locations throughout the orphanage, and it's one of the few times we actually see all the other orphans besides Annie and her main friends. In the median and newest, we only see a handful of different locations, and just the main 7 orphans. And like said before, we not only see Bert Healy in the intro to You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile, and Warbucks being tricked into doing a commercial, but we also get a funny scene where Annie is shocked to learn that media can be a bit deceiving at times. But what really makes the oldest the best, in my opinion, is the passion. You can tell all the actors are enjoying singing these songs in each version, but in the oldest, they are just having the time of their frickin' lives with most of them. Let's look at the girls' rendition of You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile.
You're never fully dressed without a smile. Who cares what they're wearing? You're never fully dressed. You're never fully dressed. You're never fully dressed.
Yeah, these girls could make any school play as awesome as The Last of Us or Top Gun Maverick. And of course, there are the villain songs. Carol Burnett is a riot in Little Girls, and an original song created for the movie where Warbucks tries to get her to sign the adoption papers for Annie and she just tries to flirt with him. And of course, there's my favorite song, Easy Street. The choreography, the singing, and acting are just so much fun in this version. And to wrap up, let's talk about the original songs the oldest and newest add. The original songs in the oldest are more lighthearted and comedic, where in the newest they're more heartwarming and emotional, and each are good at their respective genre. But on account of the awesome song Sign that I mentioned earlier, I give a slight edge to the original songs of the oldest.
Oh.
Okay guys, so let's address the elephants in the room, shall we?
Yeah,
I was expecting the oldest to be the winner, but I was not expecting it to completely sweep the board. Let me clarify, just because I gave every point to it does not mean that I think the median and newest are bad films at all. The median is great as the most faithful adaptation of the three, and the newest is cool for giving the story a modern day spin, even if it has kind of mixed results. And I swear, this is not biasing because it's, well, the oldest and probably most famous adaptation of the three. I just call it how I honestly see it, and in my honest opinion, I just feel the oldest did everything best. You're welcome to your own opinion, but since it's my show, it's my opinion that gets the vote
winner,
here.
The original Andy. Yeah, unfortunately, I have to agree. Like, I mean, comparing like the two, Annie is like the most iconic when you think about it. Like, sure, you got some like great moments that improve in the, you know, newest and the median, but I mean, considering Annie is kind of their own thing, you know, Punjab and all that, yeesh, no wonder. I mean, I'll be real. Like, when me and him were doing like, you know, the Music Man, sure, we could have given all points to, you know, the original, considering it's in the freaking Library of Congress, you know, National Archives. But there were points that actually were better in the, well, the new one and the original. Yep. I mean, hey, supposed to show you, sometimes it really happens. But here, well, pretty much a clean sweep. But hey, goes to show you, every film's got their merits. And it's all in personal taste, to be honest. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that one. Peace, Andrews, you're welcome. And until next time, like, subscribe for more. Good night.